Maybe I jump on this moment, this question about the enemy from within. This is also coming from the other side. This is Joy Behar calling Trump a fascist. This was last week, and the Wall Street Journal takes it on in a new headline. Listen.
I think that to say that he's a fascist is completely accurate. I mean, it does fit the definition. He wants to send the military in to attack his opponents. I mean, what more do you really need to hear?
So it's fair to say there's questions about this on both sides, really, right?
No, well, Joy Behar is responding to things Donald Trump said, not the other way around. And you've seen Donald Trump himself and then J.D. Vance this morning on our own air with Bill Hemmer and Dana struggling to talk about the enemy within comments. He's been given the opportunity to walk it back, to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't name check Adam Schiff and the Pelosi's, and he continues with it. He thinks that Democrats are the enemy within, and he doesn't have a problem with sending the National Guard after them. So Joy Behar is responding to the comments that Donald Trump started. And I want to get back to what Sean was saying about the McDonald's thing. That image, it surely won the day yesterday. And I think that for people who are fans of Donald Trump, that is something that will really resonate. But if you look at what was going on social media on Saturday, for instance, the dominant thread that I was seeing was that Donald Trump couldn't help himself but to talk about how Arnold Palmer was well hung. On Friday, he was saying that Abraham Lincoln should have settled the Civil War. I guess that's the art of the deal, that he could have made a better deal. And then you have the enemy within comments. So if you look at the totality of that for the weekend, I don't think that speaks that well.
Well, the Wall Street
Trump.
Journal took on those recent comments from Joy Behar and said the fear of fascism would have more credibility if Democrats didn't abuse power themselves.
And so they're shattering the rules all around the way this government works. I mean, and I think Donald Trump to go, listen, let's get back to normalcy. Let's get back to actually respecting each other.
How big Arnold Palmer was? Are you kidding me, Sean?
Wait, listen, we're talking about how the...
No. You tell me, if Joe Biden had stood up there and said, you know, I saw Arnold Palmer in a shower once, and boy, that guy's got it going on down there. What would you have said? That he wasn't fit to lead?
That doesn't affect the way the government works, the way the government functions.
That you have an insane person as the head of the government? And when you say we shatter the norms, maybe the guy who got indicted is the one that shattered the norms.
Maybe it's the lawfare that was used to indict him on bogus charges.
Just real quickly, we've got to leave it there. But the response on the FEMA thing was also interesting, by the way, after we just had that couple on who said they've called and have not heard back. Jessica.
Listen, I want everybody to be able to get the help that they need. But it is notable that Congressman Chuck Edwards, a Republican who was standing there shoulder to shoulder with Donald Trump, was the one who had to release a statement after the hurricane debunking all of the junk that Donald Trump was spreading.
What does that have to do with getting people help on the ground?
Well, that's the point, that when Donald Trump and his allies tell the people that the help is not coming from you, that the government doesn't care about you, and they gave your money to undocumented people,
it's the people on the ground that are saying it. The people that are getting crushed on the ground that are saying we're not getting help from FEMA.
Thank you so much to both of you.
For weeks, you have been calling Donald Trump unstable, unhinged. You've called him dangerous. You've quoted General Milley recently, who called him a fascist. Today, you quoted General Kelly, who said that Trump repeatedly praised Hitler.
Increasingly unstable and unfit to serve. His former chief of staff, his national security advisor, former secretaries of defense, and his vice president have all called him unfit and dangerous. He has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. Dangerous. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one, has said he is a fascist to the core.
You've quoted General Milley calling Donald Trump a fascist. You yourself have not used that word to describe him. Let me ask you tonight, do you think Donald Trump is a fascist?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Not to mention what we know and what they've told us about how he talks about the military, referring to them as suckers and losers.
What would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies?
So I will say far too many innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed. I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries. They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United States who admires dictators and is a fascist. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body.
The price of anti-Semitism and violence from anti-Semitism has risen greatly on college campuses and on our city streets in the last year. How would you combat this growing trend?
Part of what we've got to do is talk with people so that they understand what are the tropes, what are the roots of what we are seeing. But I'm going to tell you what doesn't help. Again, I invite you to listen and go online to listen to John Kelly, the former chief of staff of Donald Trump, who has told us, Donald Trump said, why aren't my generals like those of Hitler's? Like Hitler.
Do you believe Donald Trump is anti-Semitic?
I believe Donald Trump is a danger. The president of the United States who has said to his generals, because he is commander-in-chief, placed in the Oval Office, commander-in-chief is saying to his generals, why can't you be more like Hitler's generals? Come on. He admires dictators, sending love letters back and forth with Kim Jong-un. Americans were dying by the hundreds a day. He secretly sent COVID tests to the president of Russia for his personal use. Certain standards we've got to have. You know, another point that even John Kelly talked about, I believe, and many have, is January 6th, unleashing a violent mob who attacked the United States Capitol, 140 law enforcement officers. Some were killed. Comparing oneself in a clearly admiring way to Hitler, that spiritual kind of connection, I needed that advice, I needed a prayer.
Do you pray every day?
I do pray every day. I do pray every day, sometimes twice a day. I grew up, I was raised to believe in a loving God.
What weaknesses do you bring to the table, and how do you plan to overcome them while you're in office?
That's a great question, Joe. Well, I am certainly not perfect, so let's start there. And I think that perhaps a weakness, some would say, but I actually think it's a strength, is I really do value having a team of very smart people around me who bring to my decision-making process different perspectives. My team will tell you, I am constantly saying, let's kick the tire on that. Let's kick the tires on it. Because, that is why I engage and bring folks around. So I may not be quick to have the answer as soon as you ask it about a specific policy issue sometimes, because I'm going to want to research it. I'm going to want to study it. I'm kind of a nerd sometimes, I confess. And some might call that a weakness, especially if you're, in an interview or just kind of, being asked a certain question and you're expected to have the right answer right away. But that's how I work.
I don't think I've ever heard the former president admit a mistake. A lot of politicians don't. Is there something you can point to in your life, political life or in your life in the last 4 years, that you think is a mistake that you have learned from?
I mean, I've made many mistakes, and they range from, if you've ever parented a child, you make lots of mistakes too. In my role as vice president, I mean, I've probably worked very hard at making sure that I am well versed on issues, and I think that is very important. It's a mistake not to be well versed on an issue and feel compelled to answer a question.
It's concerning groceries. Grocery prices have gone up quite a bit in the last 4 years. And what would you do to bring prices down for Americans?
Price of groceries is still too high, and we need to address it in a number of ways. One of my aspects of doing what we need to do in America is to address the issue of grocery prices. Part of my background and how I come to it is probably a new approach, and part of my plan is to create a new approach that is the first time that we will have a national ban on price gouging.
You talk about going after price gougers, and I'm quoting from the plan, on essential goods during emergencies or times of crisis. I get that. How does that help, though, someone like Eric with prices that for years the grocery prices just been high?
And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that we need to actually deal with accountability when these, not all, in fact, most don't, but when companies are taking advantage of the desperation and the need of the American people.
If you could accomplish only one major policy goal that required congressional action, what would it be and why?
Well, there's not just one. I have to be honest with you, Carol. There's a lot of work that needs to happen, but I think that maybe part of this point that how I think about it is we've got to get past this era of politics, slowing down what we need to do in terms of progress.
How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues and believe that we have to actually take new approaches. I bring to it my experience that leads to that priority. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation. So those are some examples. It's about a new approach, a new generation of leadership based on new ideas and, frankly, different experiences. I bring a whole set of different experiences.
Some voters, though, might ask, you've been in the White House for 4 years. You were vice president, not the president. But why wasn't any of that done the last 4 years?
Well, there was a lot that was done, but there's more to do, Anderson. And I'm pointing out things that need to be done, that haven't been done, but need to be done.
Regarding the rapid increase in the migrant population, what benefits and subsidies will you provide them with? Will the American citizens' taxes pay for these benefits and subsidies? How much money will be allocated?
We do not allow criminals in, and we don't allow that kind of trafficking to happen and come into our country. And as my opponent has proven himself, he would prefer to run on the problem instead of fix the problem.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, you talk about the bill that Donald Trump quashed. That was in 2024. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Just in June, 3 weeks before first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
Illegal immigration.
But if it was that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing. Congress has the authority and the purse. I'd hate to use D.C. terms, and that requires bipartisan work.
Do you wish you'd done those executive orders in 2022, 2023?
I think we did the right thing, but the best thing that can happen for the American people.
In funding for the border wall, that's something Republicans wanted. That was part of the compromise. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw was about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're agreeing to a bill that would earmark $650 million to continue building that wall.
Yes, let's just fix this. Let's just fix the problem.
Actually still go to build the wall.
I am not afraid of good ideas where they occur.
So you don't think it's stupid anymore?
I think what he did and how he did it did not make much sense because he actually didn't do much of anything.
Can you talk a little bit about how your positions have shifted and why?
Sadly, I think that there's a bit of misinformation, if not more than a bit. I'm glad that you raised the subject so that I can address it. But just if you don't mind, just let me just finish. Because I think our country deserves to have a president of the United States. Does not stand on pride. If a perspective needs to be informed by different points of view to build consensus. And I'm not going to feel the need to have pride associate with a position that I've taken. I believe in fixing problems. I love fixing problems.
I know. You said you would not ban fracking.
Correct.
You had said in the 2019 town hall, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. In 2017, you talked about Medicare for all. You talked about 2019, you raised a hand in debate about if border crossings should be decriminalized. Are all of those issues, which those are not your positions now, are all those issues that you're saying through consensus and getting stuff done you have evolved on?
Work that I have done that has been about recognizing the importance of dealing with border security. That has never changed. As I said, I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations.
But you did raise your hand saying in a debate when asked if border crossings should be decriminalized, but obviously that is not your position.
I never, that part of my plan includes what we need to do to actually do more.
I appreciate that you did acknowledge that we are a country that is faced with problems and issues.
Understand that, again, in 13 days, the American people will decide who is the next president of the United States. In 13 days, you will decide who is sitting in the Oval Office on January 20th. And on one hand, you have in Donald Trump someone who has increasingly proved himself to be unstable, unfit to serve. We've seen the image mentally of him sitting in the dining room off of the Oval Office, watching for hours as people violently attacked the Capitol. He would weaponize the Department of Justice to go after his political enemies, sitting in that Oval Office, plotting his revenge, and he's going to sit there unstable, unhinged, plotting his revenge, plotting his retribution, creating an enemies list. I'm going to tell you my list. It will be a to-do list. It will be a list of the issues that you all are raising this afternoon and evening.
She focused a lot more on Donald Trump, I think it's fair to say, than she did on many specifics in terms of what she would do.
If her goal was to close the deal, they're not sure she did that.